I've just come from Her Majesty's Theatre, which is celebrating its 125th birthday. And as Ted Bailey pointed out in the speech, you know, had it not been for Mike Walsh, today that site could be a car park, which is tragic, isn't it? If Mike hadn't invested in the theatre and poured millions into the refurbishment of it, today could simply be a car park in Chinatown.
Do people actually buy the theatre, like your mates up at the Princess Theatre?
Yeah, the Mariners.
The Mariners. Do they actually physically buy, or is it part of the estate of Victoria and they lease it?
No, I believe they physically buy the theatre.
They buy the theatre?
And I think own it for 99 years. As did...
it's like a rental in England, is it?
Yes, as did J.C. Williamson and the Tate family before Mike, you know. Some wonderful names have trod the boards there on the stage. Gladys
Yeah, I'm just interested in the ownership of it. Now you're going on to who performs.
Yes, I'm trying to drop names.
Yes.
And be entertaining.
Well, don't. Just drop them after. You can drop them after 9.
I'll tell you more after 9 because I'm getting a list of who was there.
Yes. So I'm interested in the leasing and the buying and the doing up and who pays for what.
Would you consider investing in the theatre yourself?
Oh, I think it'd be a big risk, wouldn't it?
Well, perhaps, yes.
She lies dark for a lot of the time.
Yeah, not Her Majesty's. There's always something happening there.
Yes.
For example, I'll tell you what's coming in at Christmas time. Cinderella, a pantomime. That will be
that's
nice.
good. That's lovely.
And then in the near future, a chorus line is going to play the theatre. The musical An Officer and a Gentleman.
Oh, that's interesting. The Richard Gere film.
Yes, also another movie being turned into a musical. The movie is Ghost, and that's a very successful show on Broadway. The Russian Ballet will be there next year. And best news of all for you, Dame Edna Everett is going back into Her Majesty's in 2012.
Oh, that makes me very, very happy. I often think of him. I often think now, is he still keen and interested? Are people still interested in booking and going to see him? So obviously they do.
Well, you're hearing this for the first time. Mike only broke that news tonight.
I think that's fabulous news. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't heard of that.
Now, the interesting thing is, I knew Mike Walsh as a 10-year-old when he was keen on buying the Ararat Picture Theatre. Isn't that interesting?
Yes,
and look what it's led to.
Yes.
He should be very proud. I'll tell you more. I don't want to cut into Doug Aiton's time.
Oh, no, don't do that.
I'll have more after 9.
All right.
About Indira Gandhi and Golda
who was there
yes.
at the theatre today?
Oh, hopefully, yes. Yes, I have a few names. I got there just in time as the lights went down, but I did swap benches with a couple of friends.
Good.
Judy Banks, for one. She's always hot to trot.
Exchanged dentures. I think that's the expression.
She's always hot to trot.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah, well, she's gorgeous.
Yeah. 8:12. Okay, now, you're off to Her Majesty's today.
Yes, would you rather take a break first, and then I'll tell you who we saw there? Okay, I'll tell you now if you like. I got there around about 5:30. The invitation was for a screening at 6 o'clock of the history of Her Majesty's, which had been superbly produced by our friend Peter Adams. No one better. In fact, Mike Walsh paid tribute to Peter. He said he worked on a very small budget and encapsulated the whole 125-year history in 1 hour. David Mann was Master of Ceremonies. He in turn introduced Mike Walsh, OAM, or OBE in fact, who got a standing ovation when he walked on stage, and deservedly so too. Mike was so proud and talked about the 125-year history of the theatre. It started off, you know, back in the 1880s in what was a very sleazy part of Melbourne. It was called Stevens Street back then, and it was full of doss houses and brothels and the underbelly of Melbourne were hovering around what later became Exhibition Street. And we found out how circuses were performed there early on. And we heard about the fire of the late 1920s, which virtually destroyed the theatre. And there was acknowledgement of 3AW, which began broadcasting in the foyer there in 1932. And there were memories of shows like Pajama Games, South Pacific, Sweet Charity, My Fair Lady. Also visuals of the times when Katharine Hepburn appeared on stage there, Rex Harrison and Claudette Colbert, Vivian Lee, the Borovansky Ballet, the Folklorico Ballet of Mexico. A tribute was paid to choreographer Betty Pounder. There were interviews with people like Nancy Hayes, Jill Perryman, Stuart Wagstaff, Tony Lamond, And among the guests there tonight, people who've been associated with the theatre for many, many years. Sue Nattrass, production director of J.C. Williamson's. Now, Peter Ford was there covering the event for A Current Affair. Actor John O'May, an old pal of ours. Sylvie Palladino was in the audience. Choreographer Tony Bartuccio. I spotted performer Caroline Gilmer. Elaine and David and Jason Mariner were there representing the Princess Theatre. Joan Brockenshire spoke on the video, as did Pat Argue. Actor Louis Fiander was present. PR man Jim McPherson. Geraldine Morrow, former artist from the Williamson era, along with Maria Mercedes. Reg Gorman and his wife Judith were there, along with Michael Norman, the son of Charlie Norman, the comedian from a generation ago. Judith Durham and Eileen O'Shea, the publicist. Kevin Trask was there, and 3AW's Chris Ryan, the historian Frank Van Stratton, who virtually wrote the documentary we saw tonight, and Mike Walsh's former secretary in Sydney, Sue Farrelly. I don't know the video will ever be for sale. I think it might have been a one-off tonight, just to be seen by the first night audience, but it was wonderful to relive the memories of, as they fondly call it now, the Madge.
If it's not for sale, what was it? What was the release for?
The release was for those of us there tonight to enjoy the anniversary. I don't think it's going to be commercially available.
Oh, that's a pity, isn't it? Because I think that in Melbourne, particularly, well, only in Melbourne, I suppose, that you would have a very big audience for that.
Right. If it becomes so, I'll, of course, let you all know.
I think people would love that.
Through Mary Murphy. But it was nice to have been invited. They turned on a good spread prior to the show, and again, at the end of the hour's presentation, a standing ovation for Mike, for the theatre, and for the show.
Yeah.
So there you are, Bruce. I'm sorry you couldn't have been there, but at least you've been there vicariously.
But we could take some calls a little later about some of the great Her Majesty's theatre shows that we've seen over the years.
They really concentrated on your favourite, My Fair Lady.
Oh, they would have. That was a real milestone.
Yes, and of course there were tributes to people like Gladys Moncrief, and Dame Ellie Melba made her very last performance in that theatre.
All right, there we go. Sounds wonderful.
Yes, it is. It's steeped in history. And, you know, thankfully it's been preserved. It would have been so easy to pull it down after the fire of 1929.